In the age of the Vikings, where loyalty was gold and betrayal was blood, one accusation could mean the difference between life and death. What happened when a Viking woman was accused of infidelity? Did she face exile? Did she lose her honor? Or did she meet her end at the edge of a blade, sacrificed to preserve a husband's pride and a family's name? Because in the North, love was never simple. It was a transaction of power, property, and bloodline. Tonight, we step into that shadowed world to uncover what became of women accused of adultery in Viking culture and how the line between justice and jealousy blurred into legend. Stay until the end, because what you'll discover about Viking morality will change how you see their entire civilization. To understand the punishment, we must first understand the world that created it. In Viking society, marriage was more than love. It was strategy. Every union tied families, merged lands, and secured alliances. Men were the protectors, warriors of name and fame. But women were the guardians of the home, the keepers of the lineage. They managed farms, handled trade, even ruled estates when men were at sea. Some owned land, some demanded divorce. Some stood in council. Yes, Viking women had power, but it was a power wrapped in expectation. Because her honor wasn't hers alone, it belonged to her husband, her father, her clan. And when that honor was questioned, when whispers of betrayal filled the air, the cost of suspicion was paid in flesh. But before punishment came something deeper, an obsession with honor itself. In the North, reputation was everything. It could outlive your name, your fortune, even your body. A woman's fidelity was her family's mirror. Her loyalty, her silence, her restraint, these were the threads that held a household together. To betray that was not merely to offend a husband, it was to stain the bloodline. For men, adultery was insult. For women, it was erasure. Because in a world obsessed with lineage, with proving a child's true father, a woman's body was not just hers. It was the vessel of legacy. To lose that trust was to lose everything. And that's where the nightmare began. Because in Viking law, justice was not blind. It was personal. It was vengeful. The Viking world did not run on kings or courts, but on thing assemblies, gatherings of free men who judged disputes, swore oaths, and settled scores. And in those open-air courts, under the sky, adultery was one of the most dangerous accusations a woman could face. Some laws, like the Gragas of Iceland, allowed a man to kill his wife and her lover if caught in the act. They called it blood law justice, immediate, absolute, unforgiving. In other places, mutilation replaced death. A woman's nose could be cut, a permanent mark of shame. Others faced exile, stripped of land and family. Her name whispered in disgrace. Even when spared, she was never the same. Because in the Viking world, forgiveness was weakness. And yet, some women fought back. Some invoked their right to divorce, to sever bonds, reclaim dowries, and start anew. But the law could not cleanse reputation. Once marked as unfaithful, even innocence could not restore honor. So what did most choose? To hide, to flee, or to face judgment in silence? But the written law was only half the story. The other half was lived in whispers and shadows. In truth, not every accused woman met the sword. Reality was quieter and crueler. A husband might not kill her, but he would abandon her. Friends turned away. Neighbors refused to share water. Songs of shame followed her children. The punishment wasn't death, it was invisibility. In the sagas, this silence rings louder than any scream. The woman fades from the story, her name unspoken, her face forgotten. In the North, that was the truest death of all. And yet, for all the cruelty, the same culture that shamed women also allowed them to own ships, estates, and even wield swords. How could a world so progressive be so merciless? Because power was never shared equally. In Viking society, a man's desire was seen as natural, even expected. He could take concubines, sleep with slaves, even boast of his conquests beyond the battlefield. To others, it might invite laughter or envy, but rarely condemnation. His actions did not threaten his family's honor. But a woman? One whisper of infidelity, and her world collapsed. Because in Viking culture, female faithfulness was not just moral, it was political. A husband's power his property, even his legacy, all hinged on one fragile truth, that his heirs were his. A woman's betrayal tore through that certainty, and with it, the foundation of kinship and inheritance that held Viking society together. So when a man strayed, the law looked away. When a woman strayed, the same law became merciless, branding her name in shame, stripping her of protection, sometimes even life itself. Yet how do we know what was law and what was legend? To find that line, we must turn to their stories, the sagas, where truth and myth intertwine like blood in water. The Icelandic sagas, written long after the Viking Age, are our windows into that world. They don't preach morality, they record it, raw and unfiltered. In their pages, we find wives accused of betrayal, lovers executed, and vengeance carried out with chilling restraint. The sagas never pause for emotion, no trembling hands, no pleas for mercy, only the act, the judgment, and the blood that followed. One tale speaks of a husband who drowned his wife in the icy fjord for dishonoring him, but was later haunted by her face in every dream until madness took him. Another tells of a woman falsely accused, forced to marry her accuser, her body and dignity traded like a piece of debt repaid. In both stories, there is no justice for her, only silence, a silence that echoes through generations. And yet, if you look closely, something stirs beneath that silence. In the margins of these old texts, we glimpse rebellion, subtle, deliberate, defiant. Women who turned cunning into survival, who walked away from their marriages, claimed their dowries, and built new lives from ruin. They couldn't always fight with swords, so they fought with wit, with endurance, with quiet defiance. Their stories remind us that even in a world built by men, silence itself could be sharpened into a weapon. But as the Viking world began to change, a new and powerful force crept in, one that would redefine sin, purity, and punishment. Its name was Christianity. When the cross came north, the sword of honor was replaced by the weight of sin. Christianity didn't erase adultery, it redefined it. No longer a crime that shamed a clan or threatened a bloodline. It became a sin that stained the soul before God. The church condemned the killings and the vengeance that once followed a whisper of infidelity, but in their place, it demanded penitence. Public executions turned to public confessions. The lash and the fire were replaced by prayer, fasting, and exile. Fines replaced blood, confession replaced punishment, and women accused of adultery now stood not before their husbands or chieftains, but before priests. Yet even this mercy carried its own cruelty. The church that promised forgiveness also stripped women of the fragile independence they once held. Under Norse law, a woman could divorce her husband, reclaim her dowry, and start anew. Under Christian law, she became bound, morally and legally, to one man for life. Her body turned into a battlefield of virtue. Her choices, her desires, her defiance, all recast as sins to confess, not rights to defend. And so, from pagan law to Christian creed, the story of the adulterous woman changed shape. But her fate did not. Control remained, only now it wore the mask of protection. What once was enforced with steel was now sanctified by Scripture. In the end, what became of the Viking woman accused of infidelity? Sometimes she died. Sometimes she disappeared. But always, she was judged. Not for her love, but for daring to choose. Because in the North, the price of freedom was the loss of honor, and the cost of honor was everything. If you've journeyed with us this far through the fire and frost of Viking justice, don't stop here. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to uncover more stories buried beneath time. Our next tale reveals how jealousy turned kings into killers, and how history remembers their crimes. Click the video on your screen and step deeper into the dark heart of history.